Hiya. It's the Zoom cast that we gave it a name. We were calling it I think it was called the Happy Half Hour instead of the Happy Hour, And then we changed the name so many times. I don't know what it's called anymore. It's just called Hard to Get because we haven't been doing a lot of them, and the reason is because we got so involved in the pandemic and then the election and everything just moved too fast for my little head. And I wanted to have the most exceptional people that we get our hands on the Zoom on our broadcast, and we have quite a collection. There's about 50 or 60 of them so far. I think other people are trying to do somewhat of this. I think Conan O'Brien is going to go on now with HBO specials. Maybe he's going to do more of a very big production. I don't know. And I think Jerry Seinfeld is doing something. He was doing the car thing, and Letterman's doing one once in a while. And Oprah, who was she talking to recently? She just had a little interview on Apple TV. She had an interview. So there's a lot of this going on, but nobody knows where and when. You got to find it. It's almost by accident, unless you're a regular viewer. And we're not on a regular channel at a regular time. I'm an irregular size, even in my thinking. So we have someone whom I want to introduce to you. I have to use good English because he was trained by the British, kind of, born in Israel. Anyway, the fact of the matter is that Michael Feldman, who is one of my favorite people in the world and also a modest guy, so you maybe wouldn't, he's not looking for publicity or promotion. He didn't write a book. He doesn't have a movie, but there is going to be one that is about him, kind of. There's a series on HBO. We'll ask him about that in a second. He'll be. It's a long story, but anyway, Michael is a good friend, and I wanted to have him on the air because he is essentially an honest man for sure, but he also is an inventor, and he is a science-based person, and he's had a great career so far, and it ain't over. So, with that to do, this is the another guy from Jersey, another Jersey boy, but actually, what would you call someone who's born in Israel and moved to New Jersey? And don't say schmuck. So, hi, how are you?
Good, good. Thanks for the introduction. I have to think about this Israeli New Jersey. There's a connection, all the Hasidic people are moving here. It's going to be the second Israel, out of Israel, Israel out of Israel. So I'm not Hasidic, but I see that movement happening. And so it's a good place to be.
They're not following the protocol with the pandemic, are they?
No, they're not. But there's a lot of kosher restaurants which are closed now and kosher food. So if you're an Israeli and you want to find all that, and there's, I don't know, like 20 supermarkets that sell all Israeli stuff. So it's a good place for an Israeli to be.
I had a radio station in Lakewood, and I was in Howell Township on Route 9, and that would probably have been the epicenter. That was right. The beginning of it. I was there, 25 years ago. We used to call it the Lower Borscht Belt.
Right.
It had the hotels. What were you going to say?
And just to let you know, I'm in North Toms River, which is south of Lakewood, and there's no room in Lakewood anymore. So now I have Hasidic in my neighborhood. They're filling all this area up. So instead of, you say Moses going to the mountain is coming to Moses. I always said, I want to live near Jewish people, now they're coming to me. I was in Toms River. You would dream to have Jewish people around here, but they're all coming here now.
So what's the difference between a Jew regular and a Hasidic Jew?
Well, secular Jew is more like a Western person. They keep their traditions, but they don't do all the 613 mitzvahs. But Hasidic, they try to keep all the 613 mitzvahs. So it's totally it's sky and earth, the difference. I would say a regular Israeli with he could be into America's secular people easily, but not the Hasidic. The Hasidic separate.
Why do they have this practice of not following what everybody else is doing with the pandemic?
Well, one of the reasons is that if you keep the kids out and they don't study Torah, they're supposed to study Torah all day and all night, and there's different reasons that they have for that. If the kids stay at home, they don't go to school and they don't study, they feel that things happen in the world. As long as you keep on studying it, you keep a balance in the world. But if you stop, then that balance is broken. And they don't want to stop that balance. So they send them to schools and they say God will protect them. But not all of them. That's only the harsh ones. Satmar and other cults. I call them cults, but that are very strict. But the other ones, they do listen. Like the Chabad, they will listen. But not the ultra-Orthodox. You have Orthodox and then you have ultra-Orthodox. So the ultra-Orthodox don't listen. They listen to their rabbi. So it can be Trump or Netanyahu, whoever will tell them not to go to school or not to do certain things, they'll wear masks. But if the rabbi says, no, go to school and that, they'll listen to the rabbi.
Wow. That's dangerous, though, isn't it?
And that's what happened in Israel. Most of the people that got COVID, they're the Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox community. But they travel in between the people. They go to supermarkets, so they spread it. So the only way to contain it, I think they did it in New York, in Queens and Brooklyn. They knew they can't contain them, that they're going to go to schools, they're going to have weddings and all that. So they bordered the town or the streets that they live in. And that's the only way you can contain them. If the rabbi says, whatever the rabbi says, that's what you do.
How about you? Do you wear a mask and practice separation?
Yeah, of course.
You
I'm
do?
not an ultra-Orthodox. I keep traditions, and I try to keep as much as I can the Shabbos and read the Torah, read the Bible as much as I can. But I'm not an Orthodox.
But you are following all of the other protocol that we are.
Of course. What, the mask and distance and all that, sure.
You believe in that?
Well, you have to have order when you live in a society. And if the governor or whoever says, so even if you don't believe in it, you have to keep it. Because otherwise you break, society. Like you said, the Orthodox are not keeping it. It looks outrageous. So a lot of times you don't believe in things, but you do them because the community doesn't. And if the community, they say you have to wear a mask and keep distance, then you should do it.
Is God going to protect people from it, or do you have to protect yourself? I mean,
no, God just God. There's God and there's nature, and I greatly believe that God doesn't interfere with nature. And I think I spoke to you about it, because if he does, he has a need. And if he has a need, then he's not God, because God is complete.
I love that. And you know what? There's a great Arab saying, about trust. They say, I believe in God, but tie your camel.
Yeah. Well, you have to do what you have to do. You can't rely on. First of all, I strongly believe that God does not intervene with people in nature. It's impossible for it. If he does, then he's not God. And so you have to protect yourself.
Well,
There's
now,
a joke, but
where did you learn all of this?
Well, I hold the beliefs of Maimonides. It's called Rabbi Moshe Ben Maimon. And he lived about 1,000 years ago. He was a philosopher, he was a doctor, he was a scientist. And I suggest everyone read his books. And so his philosophy, that's where I get mine.
All right, so you were raised in Israel, right? Correct?
Yeah, I was raised in Israel, and I went to military, and after that I came here.
Well, everybody has to be military. In
Right,
Israel, you
right.
served.
18,
As
18 years old.
a
So,
little while ago, there was a piece of a HBO special that they're going to do, or series of the 6 Day War, I think it is, and
no, Yom Kippur War.
the Yom Kippur War. And you're going to be one of the.
No, I'm not in that. I'm not in that movie. I was just saying that I participated in the war, in the real 1973, and all the story, what happened in the Suez Canal zone. They have I think the first chapter, the second is showing what happened there. And then they moved between the Golan Heights and the Suez Canal in Egypt because the war was in two fronts. So the movie shifts from the Egyptian side to the Syrian side. And you can see actually what happened at those two zones. It's going to be on HBO. I don't know when, but soon.
Are you coming to my party at my house? I've got a gathering at the wall. I don't know if you saw this or not.
That's the Wailing Wall.
There's a bird. I got to get the bird out of here.
Yeah. That's the western side of the temple, the western wall, and I call it the temple post office because people go and put in their little request. And then
I did my show from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And I had a pretty good history because it was a talk show, but not political. And I had everybody that I could get my hands on, including a Rastafarian, if you can imagine, from Tel Aviv. And I went every place in Israel. You know, I kept the Dead Sea dead. It was quite a trip. Masada was.
Masada. Yeah. Above the Dead Sea.
That's the Italians. I think we're responsible for that a little bit.
Now, did you visit the post office?
Yes.
Did you put your note?
No, I took money out of it.
Believe it or not, at the end of the day, a guy comes with a stick and nails and he starts scrubbing those notes and he sweeps them out and puts them in because there won't be any room for the next guys.
Well, when I was there, they were excavating under the city of Jerusalem was the city of David.
Right.
And they were very careful. They were like using a spoon. See, the Israelites, or can I say Israelites or Israelis?
Yeah, Israelis. Yeah.
Were very careful about history. And when the Arabs came in and took over, because it's been occupied by several nationalities, when they came in, they just went through everything and took the temple down and everything else. You know, I mean, I don't think they were very careful like the Jews are. Jews are very good tenants.
So if you go to the Wailing Wall, there's an entrance and you can go in, and that's only 10% of the wall. The wall goes like 7 stories down. Jerusalem was built layer upon layer upon layer, and you can see the layers every time you go down. And then you can walk about a mile and see the whole wall if you go in. So it's fascinating to see.
I think somewhere along the line, you became a mathematician or a scientist. What happened?
An engineer.
Yeah, was that while you were in Israel or when you came here?
I started in Israel. I finished here. I had to be here because my dad was a U.S. citizen.
Oh.
And the law was between 24 and 26. I have to be here 2 years to get my citizenship. Otherwise, I lose it. So I studied 1 year in Israel, and then I came to California and finished it.
And then you went to work for?
And I worked for Texas Instrument. I worked for General Dynamics, and then I worked for Boeing. They scooped me out, and I worked on the Roland project, which Reagan later on turned down. I worked on the 757 landing gear. I worked on the cruise missile. And then a friend from Israel called me and said he has a job for me. So I moved back. And
wasn't he?
what?
Was he a general?
Yeah, he was a chef.
Yeah.
And then we moved the company back here to Jersey. So I was California, Seattle, Israel, and back to Jersey.
What's your feeling about the 737, about the airplane at Boeing?
Well, now I heard it passed approval of the FAA, and I think it's the safest plane in the world now because no other plane went through scrutiny like it did. So I think it's very safe to fly it now because it went through all these testing, and that's what the vaccine needs, a long time of testing, which it doesn't have. And we'll get to the vaccine when we talk about that.
Yeah, we need to have talk about the vaccine. You know, you said something to me when we were talking about a week or so ago about how Israel has the vaccine from Russia.
Right, that Russian vaccine is called Sputnik 5.
Is that right? Is it really?
Yeah, it's called Sputnik 5. And today they declared that it's 95% effective. Now, it didn't pass the FDA. It passed their own Russian FDA, whatever that's called. And they giving it. And Israel is saying that it wants to buy it. But, you know, the U.S., when they hear Russia, they get frightening. They frighten out and they don't want anything Russian and they'll never take it. So it won't sell here. Plus, it doesn't have FDA. There's another vaccine from Britain, AstraZeneca. Together, they developed it together with Oxford University. And that's, I think, in FDA is checking it, but it'll take a little while. And then we have the vaccines here, Moderna and Pfizer. Now, to go back, you know, there's a last resort medicine. For instance, someone that has cancer and he's going to die anyway. The doctor says you have 2 months to live. And then the FDA allows, it's called emergency allowance. You're going to die anyhow. So we have this new drug. You may want to try it, the doctor will say. And there's nothing to lose because your life is, you know, you're going to finish. Sometimes they say people come out of it and they give them that drug. And I'm thinking, now they want the vaccine to approve a vaccine. The FDA needs at least 10 years. But now we have only 6 months. They started the trials, I think, in the summer, and you know we have only 6 months. So the government pressed on the FDA or whoever pressed on who, and they want to give emergency approval. And I say, emergency approval for what? We're not going to die. We're not going to die if we don't get the vaccine. All we have to do is stay home, keep our distance, put a mask. So why is this emergency? I mean, it's not last resort. I mean, if you don't take the vaccine, you're still going to live if you watch yourself. So I want to see how the FDA, what it says when they approve it for emergency use. What are they going to say with it? If you take it, then what? So the economy will be saved. So I think it's more so people can get out and open their restaurants and open the schools and you know people will go back to normalcy. But as an individual, let's say if you had money, it's not an emergency use because you're not dying. You can still sit at home, don't meet people. You know, you can order food. They put it by the door. You bring it in. You wash your hands. You keep your distance. So there's no data on these vaccines. There's no data at all. So what they do in 10 years? So they check in 6 months if you have any side effects. Then they check in a year. Then they check a year and a half. Then they check 2 years. Then they check 3 and 5. And they check it on toddlers. They check it on adolescents. They check it on old people with conditions. None of that is existing now, and they're relying on some test on 100, less than 200 people that they say it's 95% effective. So the question is, where's the data? There's no data, and they can't give it to you because the time didn't pass. The data is codependent on the time passing. So they don't know what's going to happen in 6 months, and you don't know what's going to happen in 2 years. You don't know what's going to happen in 5 years. You may get cancer out of it. But they can't tell you too because they don't have the data. So we're all like guinea pigs.
We'll go back to this again in a minute. I want to bring up something here. You know, people don't know this, but after 9/11, there was one of the big, one of the worst things that happened was the fires. Is that correct?
Right.
In the towers? And you came up with something that was a future solver. I want you to talk about that.
Well, that's my friend, Mr. Miller. I was the engineer on the project, and it's what's called rescue line to rescue people from high-rise buildings, and we could evacuate the whole tower in 30 minutes. And then Howard Safer, which was the police commissioner of New York City, he joined the group. And we jumped from 7th Street from a big building, and it passed all the tests. It passed UL tests and was ready to be installed. But then the fire department didn't give it allowance. The philosophy of there was that we come to you, you don't come to us. So you don't jump out of windows to us. We come up and rescue. So all the rescue systems. There were a few other rescue systems that were introduced, but none of them passed the fire department because they say we come and we rescue you. But that didn't work in 9/11, and if they had the rescue system, you know, most of the people would be out with that.
Well, how about the putting out of the fires? Wasn't there a liquid that where the flames don't separate and they don't? I just have to.
No. Well, we came up with a cable that goes through the fire, and because the cable is rolling, you always have new cable in the fire, so it doesn't melt. But you get down 45 seconds. You can get a person out of one person at a time, and we had on each side 25 cartridges, and you could get 25 people at half an hour. You put 4 around the premises, and you get the whole story. And each story has 4 units, and you can get all of them out. You remember Howard Safer, right?
Yeah. Oh, sure. I remember him. But I also remember that you were very advanced on the project, and it was.
Oh, we installed, and it was work. Yeah, we got all the approvals. It just the fire department stopped it.
And there was another thing you did too, which was purifying the water. What was that about?
Oh. The water distillers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that distills. I think every house should have a water distiller. It's like $100, and it takes all the junk out of the water. It gives you pure water to drink. I drink it for 22 years now. I only drink distilled water. You don't need filters. It's as old as the sun. Distilled water is that the sun evaporates the water from the ocean, and it goes up, it creates a cloud, and then it cools, and pure water comes down. And you can add minerals if you want, but now you don't get pure water in the rain because you have acid. It's called acid rain because it picks up on the way, you know, all the impurities. But if you make it at home, it's a simple device. Yeah, and we made water distillers, and Ed Koch used to, on his radio show, he used to advertise it.
Well, today they say John Kerry is going to be the head of this new division of the government now with the new president, that he is going to be in charge of the cleaning up the environment. The famous argument about global warming, and then the rest of the stuff that goes with it. I noticed today, for instance, I don't do anything without plastic. Hasn't that become the biggest enemy we have?
Yes, that's a huge enemy. And in the oceans, the plastic is floating like the size of Texas. But with distilled water, I don't understand why every house like has a TV should have a distiller. It's not that expensive, and you can have all kinds of distillers that continue making water around the clock, and it's just pure water. I use it for soups, for drinking, for coffee.
Don't tell Coca-Cola this. They're having problems now because people aren't drinking as much soda pop with sugar in it now.
Well, you know why the world is getting crazy? They found in drinking water, all the medications that people take, they pee. 95% is pee, and it goes through the purifier systems. But when it gets back into your house, when you're drinking a glass of water from the faucet, you have Prozac, you have Viagra in it, you have all kinds of all the medication you can think.
It's free meds.
Yeah. And message.
Let's go back to this thing about the vaccine, because people we all want to know, and it is the unknown. We are dealing with the unknown.
Okay, so with the vaccines, there's two types of vaccines: the one that make it the old-fashioned way, and the one that developed a new type. So Moderna and Pfizer, it's called RNA. They developed a new type of vaccine. I think it's more synthetic. But never was tested before, never was given, never was sold. It's the first time. Moderna and Pfizer, the vaccines that are coming out, was never given before anything like it. So now you don't know if it has any side effects down the line. Now, if you take AstraZeneca, they're making it the old-fashioned way, the way they make other vaccines.
Yeah, and the refrigeration is easier, right?
And you almost don't need it. You're just regular. So with AstraZeneca, if I would pick Moderna, Pfizer, or AstraZeneca, if I needed to pick one, I would pick AstraZeneca. Although they say it's less efficient, but effective, they say 70 to 90%, where Moderna says 95%. But the problem again is we don't have any data. We don't know what happens down the line. And so everybody has to have an open mind and decide what he wants to do. So you're going to have the Moderna and Pfizer right away out soon. AstraZeneca is going to take a while. So are you going to wait several months, 6 months to see, or are you going to take right away? That everyone has to make his own decisions on that. But just use logic and use common sense. Now, again, this is emergency approval. The FDA would never in his lifetime approve a vaccine in 6 months. And this is the first time ever that they're going to do that. And they may say, we don't have data. They don't. You need the time. Now, the Russians, the same thing. They make it the old-fashioned way, but they don't have data too. So it may be a challenge. Everybody's getting Moderna, AstraZeneca, and then you're going to find in 5 years that people's kidneys are failing. I don't know. Or maybe everything will be perfect, but we don't know. So if you don't know, what do you do? That's the question.
Well, were you surprised when we got hit with this pandemic?
Well, I heard in November when I was coming from China, and I wrote to all my friends. I said, this is going to be huge. And everybody said, oh, be optimistic. You only see the black. But I saw it right away that we're going to have a big problem, especially in a country where you can't lock everybody in. Like in China, they don't have now COVID. They send the police, and if you come out, and they'll put you in jail if you don't listen. But here, there's different 50 states. Every state has its own rules. They want to open, they want to close. Everybody has his ideas. It's all a big mishmash. So I knew it was going to happen here. I thought it would be even worse, but you may get by the time the first guy gets his vaccine, you may have 400,000 people dead. You may have 450,000.
I want to mention also that you mentioned China. That's because you have invented some dental tools.
Right, General Motors, yeah.
And as a matter of fact, I'm proud of you because I know that you make them, and they're made. I think you make them here, don't you?
Yeah, the Chinese tried to copy me. The Chinese guy came to me. He said, "I spent $200,000, and I copied your motor 1-to-1, and when I put it together, it doesn't work." And I said, "It won't work." He tried twice.
And you charge.
And finally, he started buying from me, but he's always trying. I know he's trying.
You're able to produce it less than Chinese cost, right?
Less than Chinese, yeah.
You're amazing.
He's. I know he keeps on trying, but when you send a part to China to be made, if you want to get the part cheap, always remember that the Chinese will make you that part and they'll make one for them. They don't even know what it is for, but they'll make it. One for you, one for them. Then they'll decide if they know what it is. So this is what happened to a lot of companies in the dental business. They had a manager and he says, how do we, let's do cost savings. And then I have a brilliant idea. How? Oh, we'll make it in China. So now the Chinese want all your drawings, all your patents before you can start making it in China. So they send all the drawings and all the patents and all the information and processes and all the and they start making the motors there. Wow, instead of making it for $500, now they're getting it for $60. The problem is that in the same company, the Chinese company, there's a few guys that take all the drawings and they go and open another company, like a company that's called W&H, they call it K&H. And now they have, with no, research and no development, nothing. They have it all in front of them on the silver platter. And they make exact same thing, and then they flood the market, and they take that company out. It happened to several companies.
How are we going to get out of this this way of doing business now that we are angry at them?
Well, Biden is gonna change. He's turn the switch on, and I think they learned a little lesson. They didn't learn. You always have to keep an eye on them, but I think they'll be good. Let's say for Boeing, the Chinese now need for the next 20 years. They need 8,600 planes. And Boeing is right there to serve. It'll be good for Apple to sell, iPhones and iPads and all that in China. They love American products, so it'll be good for business. And probably Biden will take off the tariffs.
Where did this virus come from, in your opinion?
I think it came from, I don't know. I mean, what I read, I think it came from a lab in Wuhan. And
do you believe that it's made in a lab, or was it from food?
Well, they researched it in a lab and it sneaked out. I don't think purposely, but it came out, and it's contagious, and it spread out. I don't know if you heard now in Denmark, they had 17 million minks, and that mink got the COVID virus, and it mutated. And a few people got sick, very sick, and died. And you don't have a vaccine for that one. And they were afraid it's going to spread out, so they killed all the minks. It just happened last month. They just killed all the minks, and they isolated anybody that worked with them. And then anyone from Denmark traveling to U.S. or any other country, they get into quarantine right away because they're afraid if that spreads, that's a disaster. So if you want to end this, only thing you have to, I would say, in conclusion, is keep an open mind and read the data. You want to see the data and then make your own decision. If it's time for you to take it, maybe you want to wait 6 months, maybe you want to wait a year. See who's taking it. See if the doctors, the big name doctors, are taking it. But still, no matter who's taking it, you have to have the time to understand what the side effects are. And as long as that time doesn't pass by, you don't have the real data in your hand. So
You realize we spent all this time and we didn't talk one bit about politics except to mention a little swipe at China, but not much.
yeah,
There's so much more, isn't there? There's so much more.
yeah.
Now, Michael, if someone wants to go to, can we go to your site, or are you available for people to pick up on any of your thinking, or do you want to just keep that private?
No, I don't have a site that they pick on my thing. I have so many outrageous thoughts, but they're all logic and they all make a lot of sense. But what my daily business is selling dental motors, dental equipment, dental instruments. And if somebody wants to talk, I'm happy always to talk.
Well, thank you, Mike.
Well, take care, Troy.
In case anyone didn't get your name, because we didn't mention it a lot, there's no name tags. Mike Feldman.
Take care. Take care, my friend.
Let a smile be your umbrella, but don't get a mouthful of rain.